Director Carvajal, I want to pick up where we left off in this discussion of suicides at USP Atlanta. And we noted that when you were the Assistant Director for Correctional Programs responsible for implementing policies and procedures nationwide, you directly received these suicide investigation reports. November 2018, officers not conducting rounds prior to the suicide, orderlies caught on camera passing contraband to inmates under their cell doors. October 2019, delayed initiation of life-saving measures, staff failure to perform rounds before, during, and after the suicide. Okay, then you assumed the directorship. August 2020, inmate died by hanging, officer not conducting proper rounds, unsupervised inmate orderlies passing items under the cell doors to other inmates. If I could ask for some assistance closing the door, please. Same pattern, same issues, but your testimony today, and I want to be clear about this because, Director Carvajal, I have to be frank with you, I find it hard to believe that you weren't aware of these issues as you've testified until the middle of 2021, given that you had national responsibility for oversight and implementation of correctional programs. That's your testimony today as well. Given that you received these reports directly, given that internal BOP investigations found over more than half a decade this was one of the most troubled facilities in the entire country, your testimony today is nevertheless that until the middle of last year, you were unaware of this. If that's true, it suggests that the directorship of the Bureau of Prisons is an office that has no idea what's happening within the system of federal prisons. August 2020, here's what the investigation revealed. You're the director. Quote, once again, this reconstruction revealed complacency, indifference, inattentiveness, and a lack of compliance with BOP policies and procedures. By the way, the same policies and procedures for which you had national responsibility to implement in your prior role. Continuing the quote, these lapses contribute to a dangerous and chaotic environment of hopelessness and helplessness, leaving inmates to their own means to improve their quality of life. You were unaware of this. You had no idea this was going on at US Penitentiary Atlanta. That's your testimony today.
Senator, the Psychology Services Branch is under the Reentry Services Branch. We work, correctional programs works with them. Generally, those reports, they're routed to us. We get many reports. We have 122 facilities.
Director,
it's
a yes or no. Were you aware? Were you aware? The org chart,
Senator,
we've been through the org chart. Were you aware? Were you aware after you served for 2 years with national responsibility for the implementation of policies and procedures, when you were personally copied on reports citing severe deficiencies in the conduct of these officials that contributed to the death of inmates, were you aware prior to the middle of last year that there were serious problems at US Penitentiary Atlanta? I don't want the org chart. I want to know, were you aware, yes or no, prior to the middle of last year of these serious problems at US Penitentiary Atlanta? Very simple question.
Senator, I was generally aware, but I do have responsibility for a very large organization.
Okay, you were aware.
Things happen.
You were aware.
Everywhere.
Now let's discuss what action you took. When BOP's internal investigators reported that the corrections officers in this facility, and you were generally aware of the issues, we've now established that, lacked regard for human life, what action did you take? Let me ask another question. When in August 2020, your own head office, the central office, not the regional office, not the warden, not a staff assist visit, your office, August of 2020, a year before you earlier said you first became aware of these issues and took action, said that this facility was a security risk to the southeastern United States. What action did you take?
That's the responsibility of the regional director to take those actions, and that is why I took the action I took when it rose to my level.
It was a central office report. It was a BOP central office security assessment. August of 2020, the central office concludes, this facility poses a threat to the security of the southeastern United States. What action did you take?
I would expect that the assistant director and the regional directors take the appropriate action and brief us on that. That's what did not
But the buck
occur.
stops with you. We
It
established that, didn't
absolutely
we,
does,
Director?
Senator.
So you
That-
took
that
no
didn't-
action, did
that
you,
didn't
Director
occur.
Carvajal?
If I didn't take action, it's because it wasn't brought to my attention. That was a failure. That's why when it did get on my radar, we took the actions we took.
You took no action, and the buck stops with you, correct?
Correct.
Let me read you some more excerpts from reports of suicide when you were the director of the Bureau of Prisons at this facility. Quote, "The improper medical response represents gross indifference to preserving life and violates inmates' constitutional rights." November of 2020. Would it not be brought to the attention of the Director of Bureau of Prisons that BOP investigators have found that there's gross indifference to the preservation of life and violations of constitutional rights in your facilities? If that is not the kind of thing that's brought to the attention of the Director of Bureau of Prisons, we've got serious problems in this bureaucracy. Was that brought to your attention, November of 2020?
I don't recall, Senator, but that's precisely why we are making changes with the way that we're looking at, the way that the Bureau is structured and looking at making changes. For that reason, it was an obvious breakdown in communication. There is much information in a large organization that comes to us, and I certainly expect people at that appropriate level to brief the deputy director and myself on these issues that should have been forefront of the radar. That's why we've taken the action we've taken.
November 14th, 2021, the Associated Press reports that more than 100 BOP workers have been arrested, convicted, or sentenced for crimes since the start of 2019, including a warden indicted for sexual abuse, an associate warden charged with murder, officers taking cash to smuggle weapons, and supervisors stealing property. Your response?
It's unacceptable. Their process of investigations, we have over 35,000 staff, 100 since 2019. Even one is unacceptable if it occurred and they're being investigated, but that's less than 0.5% of our staff. The majority of our staff do the right things.
Less than
And when they
100
don't, we expect them to be
100 workers under your direction in less than 2 years convicted or sentenced for crimes. Have you been successful in rooting out criminal activity at the Bureau of Prisons under your tenure?
We absolutely think that's unacceptable. We expect people to follow the law. We take an oath. We are sworn law enforcement officers, and we have processes, and we work with outside entities to hold staff accountable. We take all allegations very seriously, but there is an investigative process that they must go through, and we respect those processes and support them.